All right, so we're going to take some time to talk about section one of On the Incarnation. And so this is what we're going to do as we go through the class. I'll assign a reading, and then I'll also have a summary of sort of what this reading is about, some high points. I'll try to address some points of potential confusion as we work through the material. Okay, so it's important to know who the people are Athanasius is talking about in this book. And the first group of people we into are called the Gentiles. So, what does Athanasius mean when he talks about the Gentiles? Well, Gentiles refers to any non Jewish ethnicity. So, pretty much exactly as you might expect. Athanasius is using the framework provided by 1 Corinthians 1:23. As you'll see as you read throughout this book, Athanasius is deeply entrenched in Scripture, and so you need to be aware of that as you're working through this. So the framework or the categories he thinks of are outlined here in 1 Corinthians, where Paul says, "But we proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles." Now, sometimes Athanasius will also use the phrase Greeks, but by that he uses those two terms interchangeably, Greeks and Gentiles, any non-Jewish ethnicity. So by Jews, he's referring to the historic people of God who can trace their lineage back to Israel's patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he is literally meaning Jews when he uses that, but specifically non-believing Jews. Okay, so that's the first type of people he has in mind. The second are the Gentiles or Greeks, as he might say sometimes. Generally speaking, Gentiles refers to anyone who is not ethnically Jewish, but the list includes people from all over the world. And then the third type of people that he has in mind are the Christians. And a Christian can be ethnically Jewish or not. They could also be a Greek or a Gentile. But the defining characteristic is their faith in Jesus Christ, not their ethnicity. So these are the three types of people he has in mind as you work through the book. When you see the word Jews, Gentiles, or Greeks, or Christians, these are the people that Athanasius is thinking about. Okay, next we need to know what is the problem that we're up against? And for Athanasius, the problem is idolatry. It's the primary problem that plagues the Gentiles and separates them from God. Okay, later in the book, he'll talk about the problems that plague the Jews. Right now, he's focused on the Gentiles here at the beginning portion of the book. Okay, next we need to think about what does he mean by this phrase, Christ's apparent degradation? Okay, apparent degradation. And degradation means to be made less than, right? So, what is happening here? The incarnation, in Athanasius' opinion, reaches its climax on the cross. Now, this Christmas season, we're talking about why did God become human in the first place? But for Athanasius, the Christ becoming human is not primarily about the nativity, though of course that is necessary, as we'll see. It's a necessary prerequisite, but the climax of the incarnation is actually happens on the cross. The crucifixion appears to the non-Christian eye as the degradation of Jesus. It appears to make him less than God. You can't kill God. But if you say that your God died, something is terribly wrong and you have a limited view of your God. So this is the apparent degradation. This the death of Jesus is a problem. As he'll argue, this is the exact opposite of the gospel of reality. The cross, which seems to indicate Jesus' defeat, ultimately vindicates him. And then for Athanasius, this is important, the cross actually ends up persuading people to recognize his divinity. Okay, so what do we need to know? There are some facts that we need to have in place as we work through this book. Athanasius wants us to understand. First, though God the Son has always existed, he did not always have a body. So something new happens on that first Christmas morning. Something new happens in the incarnation. He took on the body because of his love for humanity and the goodness of God the Father. Okay, so Jesus did not have a body. He didn't have to have a body. He takes it on for our sake. We also need to understand the means by which God created everything, namely the Son. Okay, so this is going to be very important. He's tapping into John 1 theology here and biblical theology, is that God created everything through Jesus. Nothing exists apart from him. This is critical for later parts of the book. We also are going to need to understand the character of God. God is wholly good. God is also just. These two aspects of God's character must be held together. Whatever we think about God, we have to hold these two aspects together: God's goodness and God's justice. And then we need to understand the problem of sin. We don't need to have some vague sense of what sin is. We need to understand, what does sin do to humanity? Why is it such a problem? We need to figure that out. And then, of course, we're also going to need to understand God's desire to recreate the world, or to bring about new creation. God is not content for things to stay as they are, but he intends to restore everything, to make everything new. These are the things that Athanasius wants us to know as we get started on our journey. All right, so thanks for watching this video. Answer the reflection question in the workbook, or you can also use the Google form that's on the website. And I'd love to see your feedback on that particular question. And I'll see you in the next video.